Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into a truly fascinating synthesis of ancient theology and modern neuroscience. This is specifically designed for educators, theologians, and seekers who want to go beyond the surface. We're going to explore how ancient biblical practices were, in reality, highly precise biological technologies used to literally tune the human nervous system. We'll be unpacking the restored temple model, looking at how biological preparation, through things like fasting and controlled respiration, isn't just good for your health, but is actually a prerequisite for authentic spiritual authority.
For centuries, Western dualism has kind of taught us to separate the physical from the spiritual, like they're two totally different worlds. But we need a core paradigm shift here. Your body isn't just some passive, temporary vessel holding a soul. No, it is the literal, physical instrument fundamentally designed for divine connection. The biology itself was written by the exact same creator who wrote the prophecies. So to bridge this gap between ancient linguistics and modern neuroscience, here is our roadmap. 1. Etymology of the spirit. 2. The restored temple model. 3. Brainwaves and divine contact. 4. The fasting and theta connection. And finally, 5. Tuning the human instrument. Let's jump right in. Section 1. Etymology of the spirit. Unearthing the roots of breath. We have to start by treating etymology almost like a forensic science to strip away centuries of modern assumptions. Okay, so check this out. In both biblical Hebrew with the word ruach and in Greek with the word pneuma, the physical breath and the spiritual essence are linguistically identical. They are literally the exact same word, carrying all of those meanings completely without distinction. Now, this isn't just some quirky accident of translation. It is a profound ontological statement baked right into the language itself. You absolutely cannot separate the breath from the spirit because, well, they were never separated to begin with. I want you to actually notice your inhale right now. Just pay attention to it for a second. When God breathed into Adam, he didn't just inflate his lungs like a balloon. He transmitted the ruach through the respiratory system, activating the full, brilliant spectrum of human consciousness. With every single breath you take, you are quite literally reenacting the original biopneumatic interface of creation. Breathing is the very first prayer, established way before language even existed. Section 2. The restored temple model, the anatomy of the holy place. Let's see how this concept of breath maps directly onto the physical architecture of our biology.
In the ancient texts, Beit HaMikdash was the dwelling place of the manifest presence of God. But as the Apostle Paul so boldly states, your body is now the temple. It's like a giant biological blueprint. The architecture of Solomon's temple, you've got the outer court, the holy place, the Holy of Holies, corresponds precisely, zone for zone, with the human nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system is the actual infrastructure the spirit built into your temple before you were even conscious of being alive. Now, there is a stark contrast between two very different paradigms here. On one hand, you have a modern system trapped in the absolute chatter of stress. The Hebrew text calls this katar rak, which means a shortness of breath and a constriction of spirit. It relies heavily on credentialism and operates in a high-stress, fight-or-flight sympathetic overdrive. But on the other hand, we have the biologically prepared, ancient restored temple model. This model prioritizes nervous system coherence, deliberately accessing deeper brainwave states to achieve genuine, raw, spiritual readiness. You know when scripture tells us to be still? Well, it uses the Hebrew word rapha. And this is fascinating because it isn't just a poetic suggestion to calm down, it is a literal anatomical instruction to release tension, to let drop, and to sink. This physical release directly activates your vagus nerve, which acts as the primary brake on your body's fight-or-flight system. That stillness, it is the literal doorway to restoration.
Section 3. Brainwaves and divine contact, the taxonomy of consciousness. Let's dive into the hard neuroscience of how altering our biological state actually opens the door to revelation. This is essentially a map of human consciousness. Notice how perfectly precise, measurable neural oscillation frequencies map right onto specific historical prayer states. Your active waking state, beta, correlates perfectly with focused petition and intercessory warfare. But as we consciously slow the brainwaves down through deliberate breath work, stepping down into alpha, theta, and delta, we shift into centering prayer, prophetic vision, and deep surrender. And finally, those massive gamma bursts, they correlate directly with peak insight and the integration of profound truth across the brain. Here is the challenge, though. The modern nervous system is absolutely locked in high beta. That's the high frequency chatter of survival, anxiety, and constant rumination. Because of this, we must deliberately step down into the alpha state, manually bringing our brainwaves to that 8 to 13 hertz range. Alpha is the bridge. It is the absolutely crucial gateway to the subconscious threshold, where that still small voice can actually be heard above the deafening noise of our own stress.
Section 4, the fasting and theta connection, metabolic switching for the prophetic state. So, how did the ancients push past that alpha gateway and dive into those deep visionary theta states?
It all comes down to the profound biological mechanism of fasting. Listen, biblical fasting is not a hunger strike to manipulate or guilt trip God. It is a highly specific bio-spiritual demolition project designed to clear your internal noise floor. When you fast, your body shifts its metabolism from glucose to ketones. This metabolic shift forcibly silences the default waking mind, frees up massive amounts of biophysical energy usually wasted on digestion, and quite literally chemically thins the veil of perception by naturally pushing the brain into theta and gamma states. And this is exactly why the number 40 pops up everywhere. Moses on Sinai, Elijah at Horeb, Yeshua in the wilderness. They all executed 40-day fasts. And they didn't do this merely as a test of willpower or endurance. They were actively utilizing an ancient biological technology to chemically prepare their nervous systems so they could bear the raw, unmediated weight of the voice of God without shattering. But here's the catch, and it's a huge one. These biological protocols absolutely cannot be separated from ethics. According to the prophet Isaiah, true fasting must manifest as social liberation, meaning feeding the hungry and breaking yokes of oppression. If this intense biological preparation of your nervous system isn't perfectly matched with a generous, ethical, and humble inward posture, it becomes totally meaningless. The heart must align with the biology. Section 5. Tuning the human instrument. Practical protocols for educators and seekers. Let's look at the somatic micro-practices you can actually utilize today. We really have to understand that seizing manual control of our breath is literally the only autonomic function we can consciously command to shift our nervous system out of spiritual anxiety. Slow, deep exhales directly stimulate the vagus nerve, which is essentially your body's built-in peace cable. Also, contrary to popular belief, carbon dioxide is not just some waste gas. Because of something called the Bohr effect, building a tolerance to CO2 through slow breathing actually helps your hemoglobin release more oxygen to your brain. This physical rewiring fundamentally changes how your nervous system responds to truth. Okay, let's get into a specific, highly effective technique. It's called coherent breathing, and it is incredibly simple but physiologically profound. You just breathe in through your nose for 5.5 seconds and out through your nose for 5.5 seconds. If you maintain that continuous flow for about 10 minutes, you synchronize your heart, lungs, and brain into a state of beautiful physiological resonance. Your heart rate variability spikes, and it drops you safely, consistently right into that crucial alpha state we talked about earlier. When you actually apply these protocols, whether it's breathwork, fasting, or deep contemplative prayer, something mind-blowing happens in your brain. The two hemispheres, which normally operate in a kind of cooperative rivalry, begin to pulse in total unison. This is called hemispheric synchronization. It is a magnificent neurological echo of the division of the fall being healed back into union. The analytical left brain and the visionary right brain become one. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. The scaffolding is not the building, and the biology is simply the interface. The Creator has already wired your anatomy and your nervous system absolutely perfectly for divine contact. The instrument is built, but are you willing to do the daily, biological, and ethical work to tune the receiver?